Well, this week I've been studying in Kings. Don't know why, I just wanted to go back into a little history. And we'll find that in the Kings part, or in the where you had King David and King Solomon and their descendants, Jeroboam, Rehoboam, and all that. Well, they have like two different books that we read and find details of. In Kings, it's like the prophet is writing, and one of the prophets is writing down the historical events of what was taking place. They believe that Jeremiah might have been the one writing Kings, but none of us know for certain exactly which one it was that was writing Kings. And then you also have the Chronicles, which does not go in a depth like they did evil in the sight of the Lord, or they were good in the sight of the Lord. You know, that part is kind of left out, because the Chronicles will be about like us whenever we look at our history books but not so much as for the public, but for the kings. How it was breaking down, this is what was said, this is who did what, like the records keeping. And so whenever you read in the Chronicles, you can have like a one type of snapshot that will be like official almost. And then the Kings will be a snapshot of the spiritual aspect of what was going on. But while I was reading, I kind of noticed a few things that kind of struck me off. I knew some things about King Solomon, but I never really paid a lot of mind about it. We always known him as being the son of King David, son of Bathsheba, the one that he had the affair with. And we also know of him of being so wise that God granted the answer to his prayer. And then he built the temple of God, the first temple that God didn't allow David to do. But it goes a little more into that. And that's what I wanted to cover. We'll find it in 1 Kings. Just wanted to touch on a few verses here. Right before David died, he tells him in chapter 2 of 1 Kings. It says, starting in verse 1, it says, as David's time to die drew near, he charged Solomon his son, saying, I am going the way of all the earth. Be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man. And keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, according to what is written in the law of Moses, that you may succeed in all that you do and wherever you turn, so that the Lord may carry out his promise which he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons are careful of their way to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. So just like whenever he gave a promise to Abraham, it's like, if you will leave the country of Ur, if you will leave your father's land and follow me, I will make you a great nation. He's saying the same thing to King David and to all of his descendants. If your sons will follow me and turn their heart to me, keep their heart on me, then I will bless them and continue the lineage on the king. But we find that that's easier said than done. If we turn right over after King David died, before I leave that, the one thing that King David said was, I'm going the way of all the world. Peter even writes in 2 Peter how one of these days, everything that we see, this whole world, all the molecules and everything will be totally burned up. He already said how it's not all of it's going to be purged with fire. We know that death is something that's going to come to us all. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and if we're ready for that day. And that's what he was talking about here, is my time has come. But now, here's the information I'm passing on to you. God has given you this. God has prepared you for this. And he will continue through your lineage if you will keep your your path straight with him. Keep your heart on him. We find in chapter 3 that starting at verse 3, it says, Now Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the status of his father David, except he sacrificed and burnt incense on the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on the altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, Ask what you wish me to give you. So it says straight up that even starting out, he loved God. He wanted to serve God. He wanted to do what was right. And so God even spoke to him and said, Tell me what you want. And then we find down here that he said in verse 7, it says, And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king in the place of my father David. Yet I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people who cannot be numbered or counted for multitude. So give thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this people, this great people of thine? And it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord, and Solomon had asked this thing. And God said to him, Because you have asked this thing, and have not asked for yourself long life, nor have asked riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself discerning to understand justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has been no one like you before you, nor shall one like you arise after you. And I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will not be any among the kings like you all the days. And if, that word again, if you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and commandments, as your father David walked, then I will prolong your days. You know, we have a lot of people and a lot of times in our life, whenever we first come to God, we first feel the love that he has. We first know his presence and how real it can be, that we want more. It's our first time of knowing true love, and we want to know more. And so therefore we have big dreams, big hopes, big passions. But if we're not careful, the world wants to try to dwindle that passion. They want to try to stifle it out. They want to try to bring you down one way or another. As we go on through First Kings after that, we find how King David already told him that God's going to put you as king. I want to build a temple for him, but he will not allow me to build it because so much blood is on my hands. However, it is going to be for you to build. So King David already had all this treasure and everything to go into the temple, dedicated just for the temple of God, to honor God. See, we keep on hearing how King David had the heart of God, but he was never perfect. We find so many times how he messed up if we read. But he was quick to own it, to go back to the Lord and say, Look, I have failed you, forgive me. Even whenever he was getting close to death, it happened again, where he was, in the Chronicles, how he went and did a census over the people, and God didn't want him to. And then they had an angel there with a sword ready to come. And he was like, Please hold this on me. I sinned, not the people. I've done what you did not want me to do. You know, don't hold it on them. And because he humbled himself before God, And he kept going back to God. That's the reason why he had a heart of God. God doesn't expect us none to be perfect. He knows we're going to be tried. He knows we're going to be tempted. He knows that it's going to be a struggle day by day. We're going to be struggling between the flesh and the spirit every day we walk. But the thing is not giving in and saying, well, I gave in yesterday and I was forgiven, so I can do it again a day and be forgiven. That's like testing God. That's what Paul was talking about when he was saying, don't do that kind of stuff. Don't say, I can sin because I can just get forgiven. No. That means your heart isn't to serve God when you do it deliberately. But we find that King Solomon, he goes on down and he makes a deal. He has all this lumber come in where there was not even a tool that had to be used inside the temple to build it. Everything was cut and pieced together perfectly. He had everything just right for the temple because God granted him understanding and wisdom. He had people, kings and queens, coming from all over that would sit down and ask him all kind of questions, and he would tell them the answers of their heart, and they would bring him all kind of riches. Even the Queen of Sheba came and did it. And so he had everything that he could have wanted as far as money goes. He wasn't at war with anyone because everybody was at peace with him, just like God had promised. Then we go on a little bit further. After he had spent all this time, he had built the temple for God, and then he built a big old palace for himself. And then he went and took some wives. And in chapter 11, we find a little downfall here. It says, now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Amorite, Edomite, Sidonian, the Hittite women, from the nations concerning which the Lord has said to the sons of Israel, you shall not associate with them, neither shall they associate with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after their gods. Solomon held fast to these in love, and he had 700 wives. I thought he said it was wives.
Wow.
Anyway, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned his heart away. For it came about when Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away after other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. You know, the spirituality that we stand on, it says a lot about us. What you hold fast to in your heart, it dictates who you are, what your character is going to be like. If you do not believe there's a life after this death, then you might as well eat, drink, be merry, because tomorrow you die, and you don't have to pay judgment for anything. Do whatever, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to stand in judgment. Just be happy. That's if there's no afterlife. If there is an afterlife, then it depends on, okay, is there reincarnation? And if there is, then you come back, is there something better or something worse, depending on this life? And if that's the case, then who says? Who judges? Who decides? Other faiths will say that you have a 50-50 chance. No matter if you do everything right or wrong, you have a 50-50 chance. So it's like a roll of the dice. And then you have some that says you have to do everything just like we tell you. But you can't make it. So then you're always looking to a fallible human being to let you know if you're doing it right or wrong. Or you have a God that's loving, that's only asking you to do exactly what He has put down, that's always going to be there and help you through. And you're either following Him or you're not. Depending on what someone's spirituality and what someone's belief is in their heart, that determines on what is possible for them to do and get away with. Whether it's okay to tell themselves a little lie to make themselves feel better. Whether it's okay to justify doing something that's wrong over here for a greater good. Or if it is not okay, because we stand before this one supreme being that created us, that knows all, sees all, and knows our heart on why we're doing this. And if that's the case, then there's no justification that we can ever offer to make up for it. I believe in the latter. I believe there is one God that has proven time and time again throughout all these individuals in these scriptures that He knew their heart. He knew why they were doing stuff, and He held them accountable. Even King Solomon right here, who wrote many of the Proverbs, some of the Psalms, Ecclesiastes, which they called him the preacher, and Song of Solomon's, built the temple, and saying right here how he turned his heart from God because he was enticed by the world. So he says foreign women, that's not talking about just alien. It's talking about people that was different, that was trying to bend you to where they were. Just like sin, the actual definition of sin just means missing the mark, going away from the mark. So he was allowing his heart to be bent to people of other faiths because he was enticed by them. How many times are we enticed by things of the world because the group looks to be, oh, that's the in crowd, or I want to be like them? Because we're not satisfied with what God has given us. What really comes to my mind with King Solomon, each one of those different women that he married, yeah, he honored the temple that he built for God, but he got a piece of land on the mountains, and he erected idols for each one of their gods. Each one of them, he dedicated the place for their gods in the promised land that God had given them. King Solomon supposed to have been the wisest man. How many generations after that went up there worshiping foreign gods, idols, and led their people astray from the truth? His son did, that took over. I think it was his grandson. Many of them, they would either go up and come down. Either they were bad inside of God, they were good inside of God. But you read through Kings and it keeps on telling until one of them finally went up there and just started tearing them down, burning them, destroying them. So the actions of one person justifying the lust in his heart that everybody looked up to, all the surrounding kingdoms, because they thought that he was a man of God. Because they thought they had wisdom and they knew he got it from God. And he could have used that wisdom for anything. How many people through the generations did he lead astray from God? through his lust. Nehemiah was warning the people the same thing over in Nehemiah 13. Talking about don't be going after the foreign people. Don't be going after the ones with other guys like this. Don't marry someone that's with a different God than you. Because that same principles I was talking about, the reason why I was talking about the spirituality, whenever you marry, it's not just yours anymore. You both comes to one. If one of yours is like, hey, I can do whatever because it doesn't matter after this life. And yours is, I'm going to stand in judgment for everything I do. Then you're going to clash. And it will not be a joint marriage. It will not be a joint reunion. So it really does matter in everything you do. With King Solomon, the reason why I'm bringing this out is man is fallible. We all make mistakes. King David showed that. Peter showed that. All throughout the scriptures we read this. Moses did this. He made mistakes. So what do I mean by that? Look and study for yourself. Don't be a total follower of any minister or any human being. But study, test the spirits, because one might be on fire with God today, but because of that inner struggle, he might fall tomorrow, and you never know. Study behind me. Keep me accountable if I'm ever missing the mark. I say that with anyone. Because at the end of the day, this word is God's word, not mine. It's his meaning, not mine. It doesn't matter what I think or what I don't think. There's no way I can change his meaning. So therefore, there's no way that any justification that I can offer for a wrongdoing that I do will ever mount up to his justice. But that's the message for the day. Anybody is liable to fall at times. Anybody is liable to have errors in judgment, to be led astray. It doesn't make them a bad person by doing this. It just means that they missed the mark. And maybe through prayer and through our actions, we can help them regain the mark, find their way back. Anyway, we're in this together. Let's try to hold one another accountable. If we see someone missing the mark, pray for them. If God opens the door for you, talk to them. Talk to them. But don't judge them harshly. Because it can happen to any of us. If it can happen to the wisest man that ever walked the face of the earth, then I know it can happen to this old country boy. May God bless.